2 weeks had passed since Daniel joined the Predator pack. His arm had healed well, leaving a long scar that he knew would never fully fade. He had removed the stitches himself 5 days ago, using a small mirror from his pack to see what he was doing. The wound had closed clean, no infection. Just another mark to add to his collection. Life among the predators had become routine. He woke with the sun, ate whatever meat the hunters brought back, and spent his days learning their ways. Luna was always with him, teaching him through example. He learned to move more quietly through the forest. He learned to read the signs that meant danger was near. He learned to understand the different calls the predators made. Though he could not make those sounds himself, the pack had accepted him completely now. Cubs played around him without fear. Adults included him in their grooming circles, though they were gentle with his soft skin. The old, gray-muzzled predator, who Daniel learned was the pack elder, would sit with him sometimes and just watch the forest. They did not speak, but there was understanding between them. Daniel had started teaching them things too. He showed them how to use tools, how a stick could be used to dig roots from the ground, how rocks could be used to crack open the hard shells of certain nuts. The predators watched with interest, trying to copy him. Their paws were not made for holding tools like human hands, but some of them figured it out. The warrior, who Daniel had started calling Storm because of the way she moved like thunder, brought him to watch a hunt. He followed at a distance, careful not to make noise. The predators moved through the forest like ghosts, spreading out to surround a herd of large, four-legged creatures with thick fur and long horns. Storm gave a signal, a low rumble that Daniel felt more than heard. The pack attacked as one. The hunt was over in minutes. The pack worked together perfectly, each predator knowing exactly what to do. They brought down 3 of the creatures, enough to feed the entire pack for days. When they dragged the kill back to the den, Storm called Daniel over. She tore off a piece of meat and offered it to him first. The other predators watched. This was an honor, Daniel realized. The first meat went to the leader. The second went to honored pack members. Storm was showing everyone that Daniel was honored, that he was family. Daniel took the meat and raised it above his head, a gesture of thanks. The predators rumbled their approval. Luna jumped around excitedly, proud that her human was being recognized. But good times never lasted forever. On the 17th day, a sound ripped through the morning air. A sound Daniel recognized immediately: ship engines. His rescue team had finally arrived. He ran to an open space where he could see the sky. A military transport ship was circling overhead, scanning for his beacon. Relief flooded through him. He was going to be rescued, going home, but then he looked back at the den, at Luna sitting at the entrance to their cave, watching him with those yellow eyes. At Storm standing on a high rock, the rest of the pack gathered around her. They did not understand what the ship was. They were ready to defend their home if needed. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had to make a choice. Go with the rescue ship and return to his people, or stay here with the pack that had saved him, protected him, accepted him as family. He pulled out his communicator and switched it on. The small screen flickered to life, showing the face of Commander Helen Brooks. She looked tired but relieved. "Carter! Thank God you're alive. We've been searching for 2 weeks. Are you injured? Are you in danger?" Daniel looked at his healed arm, then at the predators watching him. "I'm fine, Commander. Healthy, not in danger." "Good. We're sending down a shuttle to extract you. Stay in the open so we can find you easily." "Commander, wait. I need to report something. The predators on this world, they're intelligent. More than we thought. They have social structures. They communicate. They understand concepts like honor and family." There was a pause on the other end. "Carter, did you hit your head in the crash? You're talking about the apex predators that killed 3 survey teams?" "Yes, ma'am. But they're not mindless killers. They're people. Different from us, but people. I've been living with them. They saved my life." Another pause, longer this time. "Carter, you've been through trauma. Sometimes isolation can cause confusion. We're coming to get you. You'll feel better once you're back on the ship." "I'm not confused, Commander. I'm telling you the truth. These creatures are sentient. First contact protocols should apply. Just stay where you are, Lieutenant." "That's an order." The shuttle will be there in 5 minutes. The communicator went dead. Daniel looked up at the sky. The transport ship was still circling. In 5 minutes, a shuttle would land. Marines would come out, probably with weapons ready. They would see the predators as threats. They might even try to shoot them. He could not let that happen. Daniel ran back to the den. Storm met him halfway, with Luna at her side. The warrior's eyes were locked on the sky, on the metal bird circling overhead. She knew it was connected to Daniel somehow. "They're coming for me," Daniel said, even though he knew Storm could not understand the words. "My people." "They're going to take me away," Storm rumbled low in her chest. Luna pressed against Daniel's legs, whimpering. "I have to go with them," Daniel continued. "But I'll come back, I promise. I'll make them understand that you're not animals, that you're people who deserve respect." He did not know if they understood, but Storm looked at him for a long moment, then touched her nose to his forehead. Luna did the same. The pack gathered around, all of them touching him one by one. Saying goodbye, the shuttle came down in a clearing 1/2 mile from the den. Daniel walked toward it slowly, Luna following him. Storm and several other warriors shadowed them through the trees, staying hidden but close. The shuttle landed with a blast of hot air. The door opened and Marines poured out, weapons raised. Commander Brooks stepped out after them, her face stern. "Carter, get over here." "Move away from that creature." Daniel stood his ground. Luna was pressed against his leg, growling at the strange humans with their weapons. "She's not going to hurt anyone, Commander." "Lower your weapons, you're scaring her." "That thing is a predator, Carter. It could rip you apart. Her name is Luna, and she's my friend. She saved my life. Her pack saved my life. Lower your weapons." "Please." Brooks studied his face, searching for signs of madness or trauma. But Daniel met her gaze steadily, calmly. He was not crazy. He knew exactly what he was saying. Finally, Brooks raised her hand. "Lower weapons, but stay alert." The Marines lowered their rifles, but kept them ready. Brooks walked closer, stopping a safe distance away. Her eyes moved from Daniel to Luna and back again. "Explain," she said simply. So Daniel did. He told her everything, the crash. The first night when Luna found him, showing scars to communicate. The Skrill attack, living with the pack, learning their ways. Everything. Brooks listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "If what you're saying is true, this changes everything. We'll need to document this. Study them, set up proper first contact protocols." "No experiments," Daniel said firmly. "They're not lab animals. They're people. If you want to study them, you do it respectfully." "With their permission," Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Their permission? How do you plan to get that when we can't even speak to them?" "I'll get it. Give me time, let me work with them. I can be the bridge between our species." Luna chose that moment to step forward. She walked right up to Brooks, who stiffened but did not back away. Luna sniffed her, circled her once, then sat down and showed her side. "The scars?" The same gesture she had shown Daniel weeks ago. Brooks stared at the scars. "She's showing me her wounds. Why?" "Because that's how her people communicate. Scars mean survival. They mean strength. She's telling you she's a warrior. That she deserves respect." Brooks looked at Daniel. "And what did you show her?" Daniel pulled up his shirt, showing the scars across his chest and stomach. "Everything, all my old wounds." "And she understood." "That's when she decided to trust me." Brooks slowly reached out and touched one of Luna's scars. Luna did not move, just watched her with calm yellow eyes. "They really are intelligent, aren't they? More than we ever imagined." Brooks pulled her hand back and stood up. "All right, Carter. You win. We'll do this properly. First contact protocols. No weapons unless absolutely necessary, and you'll be our liaison." She paused. "But you're coming back to the ship tonight. You need a medical check and a proper debriefing." Daniel looked down at Luna. "I have to go with him, but I'll be back soon, I promise." The ship was falling apart around Daniel Carter. Metal screamed and tore as the transport vessel broke into pieces. He grabbed onto anything he could find, but the force threw him against the wall. His arm hit something sharp, and pain shot through him like fire. Blood started pouring down his sleeve, warm and sticky. The emergency pod ejected him just before the main hull exploded. He hit the ground hard, rolled through dirt and leaves, and came to a stop against a tree. For a moment, he just lay there, trying to breathe, trying to think. His arm was bad. Really bad. The cut ran from his shoulder down to his elbow, deep enough that he could see muscle and bone. Daniel forced himself to sit up. The world spun, but he pushed through it. He had been a soldier for 10 years. He had survived 3 wars and countless battles. A crash landing was not going to be what killed him. He looked around. The forest was like nothing on Earth. The trees were massive, with purple bark and leaves that glowed faintly in the dim light. The sky above was green, not blue, with 2 moons already visible, even though it was still day. Somewhere behind him, his ship was burning. He could smell the smoke. His emergency pack was still strapped to his back. That was good. That was very good. Daniel pulled it off and opened it with his good hand. Inside was everything he needed to survive: medical supplies, food, water, a knife, and a small pistol. Not much, but enough. The blood was still flowing from his arm. He needed to stop it soon or he would pass out. Maybe die. He stumbled away from the crash site looking for water. His training told him to find shelter, find water, treat wounds. In that order. But right now, the wound was the biggest problem. He found a stream after walking for about 10 minutes. The water was clear and cold. He knelt beside it, breathing hard. His vision was getting blurry at the edges. Not good. He was losing too much blood. Daniel pulled out the medical kit and laid everything out on a flat rock: antiseptic, thread, needle, bandages, pain medicine. He had done this before, stitched his own wounds in the field. It was never easy, but it was necessary. He took the pain medicine first, jabbing the needle into his arm near the wound. It would take a few minutes to work, but he did not have a few minutes. He poured the antiseptic over the cut. The pain was incredible. He bit down on his sleeve to keep from screaming. Then he heard something move in the forest behind him. Daniel froze. He reached slowly for his pistol, pulled it out, and held it ready. His hand was shaking, but his finger was steady on the trigger. He looked into the darkness between the trees. Eyes looked back at him. Yellow eyes. Slitted like a cat's. They glowed in the shadows, reflecting the last bit of daylight. 1 pair, 2 pairs, 5 pairs. Maybe more. He could not count them all. They were all around him, hidden in the bush and behind trees. Predators had to be. Nothing else would move. That quietly, watch that carefully. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. He was in no shape to fight. 1 predator, maybe he could handle. But 5? 10? No chance. His only hope was that they would leave him alone, that they would see he was not a threat and move on. He turned back to his arm, moving slowly, keeping the pistol close. If he was going to die, he would die trying to survive. That was what humans did. They fought until the very end. He picked up the needle and thread with his good hand. His fingers fumbled with the thread, trying to get it through the small hole in the needle. It took 3 tries, but he got it. The eyes in the forest had not moved. They were still watching him. Daniel pressed the needle against his skin, just below the shoulder where the cut started. He pushed it through. The pain was sharp, but the medicine was starting to work. It was bearable. He pulled the thread through, then pushed the needle through the other side of the cut. Pull, tie, move down. Pushed the needle through again. He worked slowly, carefully. Each stitch had to be tight enough to hold the wound closed, but not so tight that it would tear the skin. He had learned this the hard way, years ago, on a battlefield on the far side of the galaxy. Bad stitches meant infection. Infection meant death. The eyes moved closer. Daniel did not look up. He could not afford to. If he stopped now, if he showed fear, they might attack. Animals could sense fear. He kept working, kept stitching, kept his breathing steady and calm. One of the creatures stepped out of the shadows. The others, younger. A cub, maybe. It looked like a mix between a wolf and a big cat, covered in dark blue fur. Its eyes were bright yellow, curious rather than hungry. It crept forward slowly, its nose twitching, its head low. Daniel glanced at it, then back at his arm. He was halfway done with the stitches. 10 more to go. Maybe 12. He could not stop now. The cub came closer. It was only a few feet away now, close enough that Daniel could hear it breathing. It made a small sound like a chirp mixed with a growl. Not aggressive. Just curious. Stay back, Daniel said quietly. His voice was rough, tired. I don't want to hurt you. The cub tilted its head, watching his hands. It watched the needle go in, come out, pull the skin together. It seemed fascinated by what he was doing. Daniel kept working. Stitch after stitch. The wound was closing. The bleeding was slowing. He was going to make it. He was going to survive this. The adult predators in the forest had not attacked. They were still watching, but they had not moved closer. Maybe they were waiting to see what their young one would do. Maybe they were just curious too. Daniel tied off the last stitch and cut the thread with his knife. He sat back against a tree, exhausted. His arm was wrapped in clean white bandages now. The blood finally stopped. He had made it through the worst part. The cub was sitting right in front of him now, less than 3 feet away. It was staring at him with those big yellow eyes, its head tilted to one side. Daniel stared back. You're not going to eat me, are you? He asked. The cub made that chirping sound again. Then it lay down, resting its head on its paws, still watching him. Daniel let out a long breath. He was too tired to be afraid anymore. Too tired to do anything but sit there and rest. He closed his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them again, the cub was even closer. It had moved while he was not looking, crept right up next to him. Now it was pressed against his leg, warm and solid. The eyes in the forest were still there. Still watching? But they did not feel dangerous anymore. They felt like they were just keeping an eye on their young one, making sure it was safe. Daniel reached into his pack and pulled out a food bar. He was hungry and he needed energy. He tore open the package and took a bite. It tasted like cardboard, but it was food. The cub's nose twitched. It looked at the food bar with interest. You want some? Daniel asked. He broke off a piece and held it out. The cub sniffed it carefully, then took it gently from his hand. It chewed slowly, swallowed, then made a happy sound. Daniel smiled. It was a strange thing, sharing food with an alien predator. But it felt right somehow. He ate the rest of the bar, then leaned back against the tree. His arm hurt, but it was a dull ache now, not the sharp pain from before. The medicine was working. The stitches were holding. He would be okay. The cub curled up next to him, its body warm against his side. Daniel knew he should stay awake, should keep watch. But his body had other ideas. His eyes grew heavy. The darkness crept in. The last thing he felt before he fell asleep was the steady breathing of the cub beside him. Daniel woke up cold and stiff. The sun was rising, painting the strange purple trees with orange light. He blinked a few times, confused about where he was. Then the pain in his arm reminded him. The crash. The forest. The predators. He looked down and saw the cub still pressed against his legs. It was asleep, breathing slowly and deeply. Its fur rose and fell with each breath. In the morning light he could see it more clearly. The fur was not just blue, but had streaks of silver running through it. Its paws were huge, too big for its body. It would grow into them someday. Become as large as the adults hiding in the forest. The adult predators were gone now. Daniel looked around carefully, but he could not see any yellow eyes watching him. They must have left during the night, trusting their young one to be safe with him. That was strange. Why would they trust him? The cub woke up and yawned, showing teeth as long as Daniel's fingers. Sharp teeth. Teeth that could tear through metal if they wanted to. But the cub just looked at him, made a happy chirping sound, and stretched. Morning, Daniel said. His voice was rough. His throat was dry. He needed water. He stood up slowly, testing his arm. It hurt, but the stitches had held through the night. No fresh blood. That was good. He walked to the stream and drank deeply, cupping the water in his good hand. The cub followed him and drank beside him, lapping at the water with a long pink tongue. Daniel pulled out another food bar and ate it while sitting on a rock. The cub watched him eat, but this time it did not beg. It seemed to understand that the food was his, that he needed it. He needed to think about what to do next. His ship was destroyed. His emergency beacon was active, but it might take days for a rescue team to find him. Maybe weeks? He needed to survive until then. That meant finding better shelter, finding more food, and keeping his wound clean. The cub made a sound, drawing his attention. It was standing a few feet away, turned so its side faced him. At first, Daniel did not understand what it was doing. Then he saw the scars. 3 long scars ran down the cub's shoulder and side. They were old scars, healed over, covered with fur that had grown back white instead of blue. Something had attacked this cub before. Something with claws. And the cub had survived. Daniel stared at the scars. The cub looked back at him, then at his bandaged arm, then back at the scars on its own body. It was trying to tell him something. Trying to show him something. "You got hurt too," Daniel said slowly. "You understand what it's like." The cub chirped and moved closer. It sniffed at his bandaged arm, gentle and careful, then looked up at his face. There was something in those yellow eyes. Something that looked almost like understanding. Daniel pulled up his shirt, showing the cub the scars on his chest and stomach. There were many of them. Burns from laser fire. A long jagged line from an explosion. A round scar where a bullet had gone through him. Each scar had a story. Each one was a time he almost died but did not. The cub stared at the scars. It made a low sound in its throat, almost like a rumble. Then it did something Daniel did not expect. It pressed its head against his chest, right over the biggest scar. The one from the bullet. Daniel stood very still. He did not know what to do. The cub was showing him kindness, showing him that it understood pain, that it understood survival. This was not just an animal. This was something more, something smart, something that felt things. He slowly reached out and touched the cub's head. The fur was soft and warm. The cub leaned into his hand, making that happy chirping sound again. They stood like that for a long moment. A human and an alien predator. 2 survivors. 2 beings who had been hurt and had healed and had kept going. A sound came from the forest. A deep, rumbling call. The cub's head shot up, its ears standing straight. It answered with its own call. Higher and younger, but similar in pattern. An elder predator emerged from between the trees. Daniel's hand moved toward his pistol, but he stopped himself. The predator was not attacking. It was walking slowly, calmly, watching him with intelligent eyes. This one was massive, easily twice his size, with muscles that rippled under dark fur. Scars covered its body, dozens of them. This was an old warrior, a survivor of many battles. The cub ran to the adult, chirping and making excited sounds. The adult touched noses with the cub, a gesture that reminded Daniel of how dogs greeted each other on Earth. Then the adult looked at Daniel. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Daniel did not move, did not reach for his weapon. He just stood there, meeting the predator's gaze. The adult turned, showing Daniel its scarred side, just like the cub had done. The scars on the adult were terrible. Deep gouges that must have nearly killed it. Burns that had taken away patches of fur. A chunk missing from one ear. This creature had fought for its life many times and had won every time. Daniel understood. This was a test. A way of communicating. He pulled his shirt up again, showing his own scars. The adult stared at them, its yellow eyes moving from scar to scar. Then it looked at his bandaged arm. The predator made a sound deep in its chest. Not a growl. Something else. Something that sounded almost like approval. Then it did something that shocked Daniel. It lowered its head just slightly. A gesture of respect. Warrior to warrior. Daniel lowered his head in return. The adult called to the cub, and the young one bounded back to its side. But before they left, the cub ran back to Daniel one more time. It pressed its head against his hand, chirped happily, then ran back to follow the adult into the forest. Daniel watched them disappear between the trees. He stood there for a long time, trying to understand what had just happened. These creatures were not mindless beasts. They were people. Different from humans, but people nonetheless. They understood honor. They understood respect. They understood that scars were proof of survival, proof of strength. He looked down at his bandaged arm. The wound would heal. It would leave another scar to add to his collection. And now that scar would remind him of this place, of the cub who showed him kindness, of the warrior who showed him respect. Daniel picked up his pack and started walking. He needed to find better shelter before nightfall. He needed to stay alive until rescue came. But he was not afraid anymore. The forest did not feel hostile. It felt like a place where survivors lived. And he was a survivor too. As he walked, he heard sounds in the trees around him. Chirping calls. Rumbling answers. The predators were following him, staying hidden but keeping him in sight. They were not hunting him. They were watching over him, making sure he was safe. Daniel smiled. He had crashed on an alien world, been injured, and found himself surrounded by creatures that could kill him with one swipe of their claws. But instead of dying, he had made friends. He had found others who understood what it meant to survive. He found a cave before sunset. It was small but dry, with a narrow entrance that would be easy to defend if needed. He gathered wood and made a fire using the emergency fire starter from his pack. The flames pushed back the darkness and warmed his cold body. As the stars came out above the alien world, Daniel heard a familiar sound, a chirp from just outside the cave. He looked and saw yellow eyes reflecting the firelight. The cub had come back. "Come on in," Daniel said, moving over to make room. "It's cold out there." The cub entered the cave and curled up beside him, just like it had the night before. Its warmth felt good. Its presence felt safe. Daniel leaned back against the cave wall and closed his eyes. His arm still hurt, but it was healing. His body was tired, but he was alive. And he was not alone. Tomorrow he would explore more. Find food, keep himself alive. But tonight he would rest. He would sleep beside an alien friend and trust that the warriors in the forest would keep watch, because that was what survivors did. They helped each other, no matter where they came from, no matter what they looked like. Survival was the one language everyone spoke. 3 days had passed since the crash. Daniel's arm was healing well, though it still hurt when he moved it too much. He changed the bandages every morning, checking for infection. So far, everything looked good. The stitches were holding. The skin was starting to close. He would have another scar, but he would live. The cub had not left his side. It slept in the cave with him every night and followed him during the day when he explored the forest. Daniel had started calling her Luna because her silver-streaked fur reminded him of moonlight. She seemed to like the name, or at least she responded to it. Luna taught him things about the forest. She showed him which plants were safe to touch and which ones burned the skin. She led him to a tree that produced fruit, strange orange pods that tasted sweet and gave him energy. She growled at a puddle of water that looked clean but was actually poisonous. Without her, Daniel knew he would have made mistakes. Fatal mistakes. The adult predators still watched over them. Daniel saw them sometimes, moving through the trees like shadows. Luna would call out to them and they would answer, but they kept their distance. They were letting Luna stay with him. Why, Daniel did not know. But he was grateful. On the 4th morning, everything changed. Daniel woke to Luna growling. Not the playful growl she made when they played. A real growl. A warning. He grabbed his pistol and crawled to the cave entrance. Outside, the forest was too quiet. No birds singing. No insects buzzing. Just silence. That was wrong. Luna pressed against his leg, still growling, the fur on her back standing up. Then he saw them. 3 creatures coming through the trees. But these were not like Luna's people. These were something else. Something bad. They walked on 2 legs like humans but were covered in gray scales instead of skin. Their heads were reptilian, with cold yellow eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. They carried weapons, crude clubs with sharp stones tied to the ends. They were searching for something. Hunting Daniel pulled back into the cave, his heart pounding. He had heard about these creatures in the briefings before his mission. Skriel, the other soldiers called them, violent, territorial. They killed anything that entered their hunting grounds, 3 against 1. Bad odds, and he only had 15 bullets in his pistol. Luna was still growling, ready to fight. But she was just a cub. She would die if she fought them. Daniel put his hand on her head, trying to calm her. "Quiet," he whispered. "Stay quiet. Maybe they'll pass by?" But the Skriel had already picked up their scent. One of them pointed toward the cave and hissed something to the others. They started moving closer, spreading out to surround the entrance. Daniel raised his pistol. He would have to fight. There was no choice now. He aimed at the closest one, taking a deep breath, steadying his hand. He had been in worse situations. He had survived worse odds. The Skriel were 10 feet from the cave when the forest exploded with sound. Adult predators burst from the trees on all sides. 5 of them. 6, 7. Daniel recognized the big one from before, the warrior with all the scars. They moved like lightning, a coordinated attack that hit the Skriel before they could react. The fight was brutal and fast. The Skriel tried to fight back, swinging their clubs, but they were no match for the predators. Claws tore through scales. Teeth found throats. In less than a minute, it was over. The Skriel were dead. The big predator stood over the bodies, breathing hard. Blood stained its fur, but Daniel could not tell if it was injured or if the blood belonged to the Skriel. The other predators checked the area, making sure no more enemies were hiding nearby. Luna ran out of the cave and went straight to the big warrior. She chirped and rubbed against its legs. The warrior touched noses with her, then turned to look at Daniel. He stepped out of the cave slowly, his pistol lowered but still in his hand. He was not sure what to do. The predators had saved him. Saved Luna? They had killed to protect them. The warrior approached him. Daniel stood his ground, meeting its gaze. The warrior stopped right in front of him, so close that Daniel could feel its breath on his face. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the warrior lowered its head. Daniel understood. He lowered his head too, deeper this time. A sign of thanks. A sign of respect. The warrior rumbled deep in its chest, then turned and called to the others. They gathered around, forming a circle. Luna chirped excitedly and ran to Daniel, pressing against his legs. She wanted him to come with them. Daniel hesitated. Go with them? Into the deep forest? But what choice did he have? The Skriel knew where his cave was now. More might come. He was safer with the predators than alone. He gathered his pack and followed them into the forest. They traveled for hours, moving through parts of the forest Daniel had never seen. The predators moved silently, barely disturbing the leaves on the ground. Daniel tried to move quietly too, but he was clumsy compared to them. Luna stayed close to him, sometimes running ahead, sometimes walking beside him. Finally, they reached a massive cliff with caves carved into it. Dozens of caves. And in front of those caves were more predators. Males and females and cubs of all ages. This was their home. Their den. The warrior led Daniel to a cave near the bottom of the cliff. It was larger than the one he had been staying in, with a flat floor and walls that blocked the wind. The warrior gestured inside with its head, then left. Daniel entered the cave carefully. It was empty except for some dried grasses piled in one corner like a bed. Luna ran in after him and immediately flopped down on the grass, making herself comfortable. So this is home now? Daniel asked her. Luna chirped and wagged her tail, thumping it against the ground. Daniel set down his pack and sat beside her. Through the cave entrance, he could see the other predators going about their lives. Cubs played together, wrestling and tumbling over each other. Adults groomed each other's fur. An old predator with gray around its muzzle lay in the sun, watching everything with wise eyes. They had brought him into their home, accepted him as one of them. Daniel did not fully understand why, but he knew it was because of Luna. She had chosen him, and her family had honored that choice. As the sun began to set, predators brought him food. Fresh meat from a hunt, still warm. Daniel's stomach turned at first. He was used to cooked meat, not raw. But he was hungry and he needed to eat. He cut a piece with his knife and tried it. It was not as bad as he expected. Rich and filling. Luna ate beside him, tearing into her own piece of meat with enthusiasm. When they were done, she curled up next to him, full and content. Other predators came to look at Daniel throughout the evening. They kept their distance but watched him with curious eyes. Some showed him their scars, just as the warrior and Luna had done. Daniel showed them his in return. It seemed to satisfy them. He was scarred. He was a survivor. That made him worthy of respect. As darkness fell, the predators settled down for the night. The sounds of the forest filled the air. Insects chirped. Something howled in the distance. But Daniel felt safe. Safer than he had felt since the crash. Luna's breathing slowed as she fell asleep. Daniel leaned back against the cave wall and looked up at the two moons rising above the trees. His rescue beacon was still active. Help would come eventually. But for now, he was here, living with aliens, protected by warriors. Accepted as one of them. He thought about his life before the crash. The wars he had fought. The battles he had won and lost. The soldiers he had served with. Would they believe him if he told them about this? About making friends with predators? About being adopted into their pack? Probably not. But it did not matter. He knew the truth. He had learned something important on this alien world. Survival was not about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about adapting, about making connections, about showing respect to those who deserved it. The warrior appeared at the entrance to his cave. It did not enter, just stood there for a moment, watching him. Daniel nodded to it. The warrior nodded back, then disappeared into the darkness. Daniel closed his eyes and let sleep take him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But he was not afraid. He had found allies in the most unexpected place. And together they would face whatever came next. Luna shifted in her sleep, pressing closer to him. Daniel smiled and rested his hand on her warm fur. Whatever happened, he was not alone. 5 years had passed since that day in the forest. 5 years of hard work, negotiations, and building bridges between two species. Daniel Carter had become the chief liaison between humanity and the Cathari, which was the name the predators called themselves in their own language. The forest moon of Kethera Prime was now a protected world. No mining, no colonization. Just a small research station where humans and Cathari could meet and learn from each other. Daniel lived there permanently now, having left the military to dedicate his life to this work. Luna had grown into a powerful adult. Nearly as large as Storm, she was a respected hunter in her pack, with new scars earned from defending her territory and her family. But she still greeted Daniel with the same happy chirp she had made as a cub. Still pressed her head against his hand when she wanted attention. Today was special. Today was the official ceremony marking the formal alliance between Earth and Kethera. Representatives from both species would gather to sign the treaty. Well, humans would sign. The Cathari would press their claws into clay tablets. Their version of a signature. Daniel stood in the meeting hall, adjusting his formal uniform. It felt strange after years of wearing simple clothes. His body carried more scars now than it had 5 years ago. Some from accidents. Some from helping the Cathari defend against Skrill raids. Each one was a story. Each one was a bond with his adopted family. Commander Brooks, now Admiral Brooks, entered the hall. She had been promoted after successfully establishing the Cathari alliance. Ready, Carter? As ready as I'll ever be. You look nervous. You've done this kind of thing 100 times. Not with this many people watching. Not with politicians and media from both species recording everything. Brooks smiled. You'll be fine. You've earned their respect. Both species trust you. The doors opened and the Cathari delegation entered. Storm led them, her gray fur now mixed with more silver than black. She was old, but still strong, still commanding. Behind her came Luna and 20 other Cathari warriors, all chosen to represent their people. They moved through the human crowd with dignity, ignoring the cameras and the stares. Storm walked straight to Daniel and touched noses with him, the Cathari greeting. Daniel returned it, then did the same with Luna and each warrior in turn. The ceremony began. Admiral Brooks spoke first, talking about the importance of this moment, about two species from different worlds coming together in peace, about learning from each other and growing stronger together. Then Storm spoke. Well, a Cathari who had learned to speak English translated while Storm made the sounds of her own language. Her speech was simple but powerful. We thought we were alone. We thought no other people existed beyond the stars. Then Daniel fell from the sky, broken and bleeding. He could have feared us, could have attacked us. But instead, he showed us his scars. He showed us his pain. And we understood that we were not so different. We both bleed. We both survive. We both carry our battles with us. That is why we stand together now. Not because of words on paper, but because we share the same spirit. The spirit of warriors who refuse to give up. The translation echoed through the hall. Humans and Cathari alike rumbled their approval, each in their own way. Daniel stepped forward. It was his turn to speak. 5 years ago, I crashed on this world thinking I would die. I was injured, alone, and surrounded by creatures I thought were monsters. But a young cub showed me differently. She watched me stitch my own wounds and saw not an alien, but someone like herself. Someone who had been hurt and had healed. Someone who kept fighting. She taught me that survival is the one language everyone speaks. Her pack took me in, protected me, treated me as family. And in doing so, they showed all of humanity what it truly means to be civilized. Not cities or technology, but compassion, understanding, the willingness to help someone who needs it, even when that someone is strange and different. He paused. Looking at Luna, she watched him with those yellow eyes, the same eyes that had watched him stitch his wounds so long ago. Today we make it official. But the truth is, our alliance began in that forest 5 years ago. It began when a predator cub showed kindness to a wounded soldier, when warriors recognized each other across species, when two peoples decided that their differences did not matter as much as their similarities. We are all survivors. We all carry scars, and that makes us family. The hall erupted in sound. Humans applauded. Cathari rumbled deep in their chests, their version of cheering. Storm and Admiral Brooks pressed their marks onto the treaty documents side by side. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Humans and Cathari mingled, sharing food and stories. Daniel found himself surrounded by reporters asking questions, politicians wanting to shake his hand, scientists eager to discuss his research, but eventually he slipped away. He walked out of the building and into the forest, following a path he knew by heart. Luna followed him, as she always did. They reached a clearing where it had all begun. The site of his crash. The wreckage was long gone, but Daniel remembered every detail. The pain, the fear, the yellow eyes watching him from the darkness. Strange. To think it all started here, he said to Luna. One bad day that turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. Luna rumbled and pressed against his side. She was too big now to curl up in his lap like she had as a cub. But the gesture was the same. Companionship, trust, love. Other Cathari emerged from the trees. Storm was there, along with Luna's siblings, who were now adults with cubs of their own. The pack had grown over the years. 3 generations now called this forest home. They gathered around Daniel, touching him with their noses, showing him new scars they had earned. He showed them his new scars in return. Some from learning to hunt with them, some from fighting beside them when Skrill attacked. Each scar was a memory they shared. Daniel sat down and the Cathari settled around him. Cubs played at his feet. Adults groomed each other. Elders rested in the warm afternoon sun. This was his family now. Human by birth, but Cathari by choice. He thought about his old life, the battles he had fought before coming here, the soldiers he had served with. He had been a good soldier, but he had never been happy, always moving from one war to the next, always carrying the weight of survival without understanding its meaning. Here, he had found meaning. Here, his scars were not shameful reminders of violence but proud markers of resilience. Here, he belonged. Luna rested her head in his lap, as close to their old routine as her adult size allowed. Daniel scratched behind her ears, and she made a content rumbling sound. "Thank you," he whispered to her. "For everything. For seeing past what I looked like. For showing me what it means to be part of something bigger than myself." Luna looked up at him and chirped, the same sound she had made as a cub. Some things never changed. No matter how much time passed, no matter how much they both grew and changed, they would always be the wounded soldier and the curious cub who found friendship in the darkest moment. As the sun set over the forest, painting the purple trees with orange and red light, Daniel closed his eyes. He was home. Not the home he was born to, but the home he had earned. The home he had built through understanding and respect and countless small acts of trust. And when he opened his eyes again, he saw both his worlds coming together. Human researchers walking with Cathari hunters. Children from Earth playing with Cathari cubs. Two species learning from each other, protecting each other, growing together. This was what he had survived for. All those battles, all those wounds, all those years of fighting, they had led him here. To this moment, to this family, to this purpose. Storm approached and sat beside him. She was old now, gray around her muzzle, moving slower than she once had. But her eyes were still sharp, still intelligent. She looked at Daniel, then at the forest, then back at him. She rumbled softly. A sound that Daniel had learned meant contentment, satisfaction, peace. He rumbled back, copying the sound as best he could with his human throat. It was not perfect, but Storm understood. She always understood. As darkness fell, and the moons rose above the trees, the pack settled in for the night. Daniel leaned back against Luna's warm side, surrounded by his family. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new ways to build bridges between worlds. But tonight, there was just this peace, family, home, and somewhere in the darkness, a young Cathari cub watched with curious yellow eyes, waiting for its own story to begin, waiting for its own chance to show that kindness could cross any divide, that understanding could bridge any gap. That family was not about blood or species, but about choosing to care for each other. The future was bright. The alliance was strong. And it all began with a simple act of compassion between a wounded soldier and a predator cub who saw past fear to find a friend. Daniel smiled and closed his eyes. His scars ached in the cold night air as they always did. But the pain was a reminder, a testament, proof that he had survived everything the universe threw at him and come out stronger on the other side, and he was not done yet. There were more bridges to build, more friendships to forge, more scars to earn in the pursuit of peace, but that was tomorrow's work. Tonight he would rest with his family and dream of a future where humans and Cathari worked side by side, where